morning, everyone. Welcome to our history vlog. I am Asha.
Hello, I am Jonathan. In this vlog, we will discuss about how Soviet Union was declined during Gorbachev era. First of all, we will talk about the causes, stages, and impacts from the collapse of Soviet Union.
The Soviet Union is one of the world superpowers who are also the eternal rivals of the United States. Russia is the world's greatest communist state in its time. In 1920, Vladimir Lenin kept trying to spread the wing of communism outside of Eastern Europe. His efforts are known as the Comintern, which stands for the Communist International. In fact, the age of challenging the two sides, the United States of America and the Soviet Union. And finally, coming out of the Cold War as the winner is the United States. Cold War, or the long-running Cold War, was ended with the collapse of Soviet Union on December 25, 1990.
There were causes to why Soviet Union declined during its era. Cultural diversity, totalitarian, poverty, progress of the age, new generation, the dissolution of the Warsaw Pact, and Communist Party in globalization. Cultural diversity was more about comparing the natives and the foreigners within a certain sector of Russia at the time. Ethnocentrism is still very strong despite the presence of its union, Soviet Union. Unfortunately, the fact remains insistent that every state of the Union holds the distinctive features and regional characteristics of each. There was no sense of nationalism called a Soviet Union at that time. Totalitarian, not to be confused with the history of the Nazis, but the reign of the Soviet Union during Lenin and so on were a totalitarian nature. Actually, the purpose of applying this trait to a dictatorial leadership is not entirely ugly. The rulers want an order within the state to quickly achieve its goals. So, the people must fully trust the state and the government. Evidently, the Western Bloc countries, led by the United States, have a better standard of living than the socialist communist state.
Progress of the age. Progress is always synonymous with globalization, and globalization is always evolving along with technological sophistication. Understandably, as a country that has two generations, new and old, will experience differences of opinion. New generation. The new generation of Soviet Union was born as a result of the progress of times. This generation succeeded in control of the government. It was Mikhail Gorbachev who succeeded in occupying the seat of Communist Party of the Soviet Union. He is a man who has strong vision ahead with his youthful spirit to get change. The dissolution of the Warsaw Pact. This pact resulted in an agreement among all communist countries residing in Europe and officially approved on 14th May 1955.
There were processes to the collapse of Soviet Union, which are loads of problems. The Soviet Union experienced a very complex problem when controlled by Mikhail Gorbachev. He has a burden of domestic and foreign dependence that must be resolved soon. This includes perestroika.
Glasnost, or openness. People have long dreamed of an open country. Gorbachev, then, is a leader who understands the wishes of his people. He also incorporated elements of openness or glasnost on the concept he ran, democratization. This element of democratization is applied to politics. The political seat monopoly system, implemented since Lenin's cabinet, became democratic. The people are given free choice in order to determine the right person to be his deputy as the speaker in the seat of his parliament. The law of order. The law was really enforced in Gorbachev's time, especially commencement of human rights law enforcement that was previously unappreciated.
With the collapse of Soviet Union as the world communist superpower, the collapse of international communist powers also fell. This means that the United States won the Cold War.
The number of different customary states under the Soviet Union ultimately gained its own identity and freedom in administrating government and sovereignty in the personality of its own citizens. They established a new state that was no longer tied to communist socialists. In fact, almost all former Soviet states favored democracy rather than continue the Soviet Union's legacy system.
With the collapse of Soviet Union as the world communist superpower, the collapse of international communist powers also fell. This means that the United States won the Cold War.
The dramatic collapse of the Soviet Union left some other communist countries slowly weakening. There is no longer a large country that became their supporters to foster community understanding in the country. Gradually, the communist influence completely disappeared from the face of the earth and became the enemy of many countries in the world. That is it for our vlog. Thank you for listening, and I hope you can learn from these informations of destruction of Soviet Union. Thank you. The economic conditions of the Soviet Union. Soviet Union? What is that?